my good luck or otherwise that I had to speak after the formidable Professor Sachs. And one of the beautiful things that the preparation of COP27, that during the last few months, Professor Sachs, who happens to be one of the busiest persons on earth, dedicating time almost on bi-weekly basis to support the preparations of this COP and get not just Egypt, but the African developing economies engaged in solutions. Professor Sachs provide the rationale on why some people like me, when we describe the international finance architecture of being unfair, insufficient, and inefficient, why that is because just of what he said there. The inefficiency, he mentioned the cost of obtaining capital, but the inefficiency as well is another issue that increases the transaction cost. When typically for an advanced economy, if you have a decent project for climate or development and they are not in contradiction, it can take you a few weeks and few months to get it. Typically for some developing economies, it can take up to 2 to 3 years to obtain the funding. These are basically real examples, especially from small states and small islands and many of the developing economies. Have very specific proposals as outlined by Professor Sachs. We have less than 7 years remaining before the 2030 agenda. Every indicator, including the one that he supervises through SDSN, telling us that we are in trouble, including achieving extreme poverty. I remember I was in the room back in September 2015 on a special summit that launched the SDGs. People were optimistic then that extreme poverty could be eradicated and reaching zero by 2030. Now we are very far from it. Because of COVID, you can say, because of Ukraine, you can say, but even before that, we're not on track to achieving the SDG 1. And this is a proxy of many things that we did wrong, including lack of investment in human capital, investment in infrastructure, and investment in resilience. This needs to change. And the practical proposal, as outlined by Professor Sachs, that could really support as well another piece that he was part of when we were in Barbados, and Prime Minister Maya Motley have been sharing these ideas of how to fix not just the international financial architecture in terms of finance and transaction, lowering the transaction cost, but the governance of the international financial system and linking finance more formally to sustainable development attitude. The other thing, we have some existing vehicles in existence. Some people, I was surprised even to know that some people in some of the leading international institutions are not aware that a continent like Africa is not a continent of low-income countries anymore. It's middle-income countries. But as mentioned the other day by the president of South Africa, when you consider a country like South Africa or Egypt as a middle income, you say, hey, you don't need the support of IFIs anymore. You have market access, good luck. So Professor Sachs said, well, try your luck then in lower environment or lower interest rate, lower inflation environment, you can access finance. But now it's double digit. So the idea here is very simple. Sustainable finance is not in contradiction with development finance. Get IDA to support the work. IDA is dedicated to low-income countries. We can extend that to low-middle income countries. I have some sort of a hope that could be supported further by your voice, because the World Bank Group President, President Malpass, mentioned something about an initiative called SCALE. And that SCALE is basically about work for development and climate, and it is getting the same treatment for low income and middle income in terms of terms and conditions. That could be a start of a good thing that could happen. We can build up IDA, but not just IDA of the World Bank. We can do the same with the rest of the multilateral development banks. We can have a special window dedicated to the work of sustainability and development together, and pushing this agenda based on a metric of performance. Funding is there, the replenishment of IDA, the replenishment of Green Climate Fund, the capital increase of the African Development Bank, which is imminent, the request for empowering the World Bank, which is needed, could really have this kind of condition to extend finance to middle-income countries and to have some sort of assurances of speed and fairness when it comes to dealing with low and middle-income countries. That could really be a very practical, doesn't sound very ambitious because we're not going to be making a headline like creating a new institution, because that can get the attraction of the media. But now we are building on some of the existing institutions, complementing them with new initiatives like the carbon credit market initiative that we started with for Africa yesterday, like the debt reduction mechanisms and swaps, reductions of debt, and investing in climate and nature. But fundamentally, all of these other initiatives are not going to get us the scale and the magnitude required to deal with existential crises like the climate change, or dealing with the problems related to lack of development finance and compromising every sustainable development goal that should be achieved. Having said that, I'm happy to work with you further, but we need your voice and your articulation, evidence-based at the country level, in order to make what Professor Sachs just shared with us, and that simple proposal make IDA for all developing economies, low income and low middle income countries. Thank you so much.